Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of AM Minnesota. Chamber President, CEO. Did I get the title right?
Yeah, that's what's on the paperwork now.
Nort Johnson is with us this morning. Good to see you, Nort.
Good to see you, Gordy. Always nice.
And I'm sure you were excited, as I was, to see the Minnesota Baseball Association awarded the State Amateur Baseball Tournament to Faribault and Dundas in 2022.
That's a lot of fun. I remember the last state baseball tournament that was here was at 78.
Yep.
70. At that state baseball tournament, here's a throwback for you, Gordy.
Yeah, there you go.
Calvin Griffith came down to Faribault to check that out, and I got to meet him then.
Did he throw out the first pitch or something?
No, he came and hung out in the management trailer that was set up for the people running the tournament, and said hi to a bunch of people, rubbed some elbows, and yeah, for a little guy, I think I must have been in 9th grade maybe. We worked the field in between games, doing the raking and chalking it up and doing all that business. There were 4 or 5 of us younger ones that got to work with the experienced folks doing the groundskeeping during the tournament. It was a lot of fun.
Calvin Griffith.
The
so
dinosaur.
Were you in awe? Do you remember what he said to you, or what?
What I remember is he's a pretty good sized man.
Oh yeah.
And he had a presence. It was you could tell that this guy had a lot going on. But spoke kindly with everybody, and it was kind of an honor to have him show up.
So you were on that Laker team?
No, I was on the groundskeeping team in '78 as a 9th grader.
All right.
So because that was quite a while ago, but yeah, lots of fond memories of a whole bunch of good Faribault folks who were there. I'll miss a few, but Charlie Madsen and Jim Tetzloff and Lowell Nolan was around, of course, then.
They were part of the grounds crew?
They were, the Lakers played in that one. The home team plays in it back then. I believe that was the case. And
so these guys were
everybody helped on the team, and everybody helped on the grounds crews. Quite a time in Faribault baseball history back then.
Well, it seems weird that it's been 40. It'll be 40, almost 45 years.
Yeah.
When it comes back in 2022, that's a long.
It is a long time, and 3 years ago we took a stab at getting a state tournament in, and I got to work with Charlie and Chris, and Tony Langerud was at the table, Jay Valentine, and a few others putting together a cooperative bid with Owatonna at the time, and that's what was submitted when we put the bid in then. Evidently the Dundas partnership felt a little better for them, or the timing was a little better.
As I understand it, Owatonna didn't happen because of the parking down.
I know that was a concern, and they were willing to do some things to help address that. But at the end of the day, there was another community that had a little better offer for them.
But I mean, I've been to some parks in recent years where the parking wasn't all that great.
And parking, it's if it's worth going to, it's worth walking a little ways, right? I'm thinking about, in fact, we're going to get up to a Twins game tonight. And
speaking of parking,
yeah, I mean, it's not you don't get to park right in front of Target Field. That doesn't happen, right? So a little bit of walking isn't a bad thing.
They tell me light rail's the way to go there because it takes you right there.
It does. It drops you right in the neighborhood, and I've ridden the light rail, and for a lot of commuting, it works out pretty well. For people who aren't used to that kind of mass transportation, it's a little daunting.
Yeah.
Though, if you're worried, am I getting off at the right stop? Is this the right place? And when will the next one be along, etc. But it's in highly populated areas, mass transportation is so much more efficient and so important.
Yeah. San Diego a couple of years ago, their rail system, forget what you call it. Anyway, I'll think of it during the break. President, CEO of the Faribault Area Chamber of Commerce, Nort Johnson, is with us today. They canceled baseball in Teepee Tonka Park. That brings back memories for you, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Old Teepee Tonka, the hotbed for baseball activity in Faribault.
Yeah, assume you used to ride your bike down there?
Absolutely. You know, I grew up 8th Street Northwest. We used to be the Gulf Station there. Now it's Meals, I think, still has the shop there. And then rode the old bicycle down to Teepee Tonka Park went underneath the viaduct.
Sure.
And drag your bike over the tracks to get there. And then there was the stop at Dusek's Bakery.
Oh, of course.
So they had a pail in the back where the misshapen reject donuts would land in. And I don't know if it was official or not, but they would fill that up, and it was just sort of a thing. It was passed down from kid to kid. There wasn't a big sign out there that said, "Get your reject donuts at the back dock here." But I don't remember. Probably one of my brothers showed me that trick, and every once in a while you'd get there just as they dropped some warm, fresh, misshapen donuts in there on the way to Teepee Tonka. They were pretty tasty. So.
And they obviously knew that was happening, and that's why they did it.
Yeah, just get them out there. Yeah, good things down at Teepee Tonka. You know, Ron Tuen ran just one heck of a program down there with the Pee-wees and then the midgets and then the junior leagues, and then I was blessed to be one of the coaches when I must have been my junior year down there, between junior and senior year in the summer, and you got to coach a Pee-wee team and a couple of midget teams and then a junior league team as one of the workers down there. Umpired a lot, coached a lot. Good times in baseball in Faribault back in the day.
Yeah, and you were a Laker at one time, right?
I did play for the Lakers for a fair number of years. I think till I was 29, maybe 30. I played.
Right out of high school?
Right out of high school, I actually went to Worthington. I played with the Worthington Cubs when I was down in Worthington for junior college. And then when I came back, I actually started playing in Elko for 2 seasons before I came back to Faribault. I had a couple of college buddies that were playing in Elko, and I got recruited to go up there. So it was good to get back to Faribault.
And second base, right?
You know, I did a little of everything. In fact, the last 2 years I played, I got at least a couple of innings in at every position. I used to catch a little bit. I was horrid, don't get me wrong. Before Brian Larson made it back from school, I'd catch the first few games of the year. I'd pitch every once in a while, but I kind of made my way around as we had openings that needed someone to fill in. Played a bit of utility.
Oh,
so.
Okay. You were Escobar.
Sure.
Of the Faribault Lakers.
There you go.
You'll get to see him tonight.
Yes, sir.
Against the Boston Red Sox. But anyway, I've got a question up on Facebook asking what Nort's Faribault Laker uniform number was, and the first person to get the number correct is going to get dinner on me at Basher's, probably the rib dinner, but one dinner.
Only. All right. That sounds fun.
I'm not going to buy for a couple. I'm just going to buy for one dinner. So we'll see if anybody.
See if that shows up first one to get that number correct. I've got a jacket from back in the day that has the numbers on the sleeves still, so we'll see if that pops up. Well, that's pretty fun.
I just thought that would be a good way to. Plus, I know you're as excited as I am that Faribault is getting the state amateur baseball tournament.
That's fantastic. You know, with my tourism hat on now, a ton of visitors come to town for that, and we've got such a fantastic field in the rest of the complex. Down at the park. I mean, plenty of places for families and teams to go grab a shelter and relax between games, have a picnic. Obviously, the swimming facility is right next door.
They're going to love it. Their families, you know, the kids of the players can go to this, like you say, the Aquatic Center. I mean, perfect.
Absolutely. I wonder, is that still open during state tournament time?
Well, they'll may want to keep it open.
We might have to see what
Labor Day weekend is the final weekend, and I think that's when they close, right?
Oh yeah. Should be okay.
I'm not sure, but I'm sure that the city won't be, they'll be smart enough to realize.
I think they'll do the best they can to accommodate. I know our good Faribault hospitality community will. We had a really neat time last week out of the chamber with running hospitality and customer service training in the downtown. It was for the whole town. We had it at the Paradise, and we had over 50 Faribault workers that came to our hospitality training sessions. Kelly and Cassie on our staff just knocked it out of the park putting it together. We had a number of Faribault partners that helped make short videos explaining lodging in Faribault, dining in Faribault. Paul Panoski gave a nice video, talked about the parks and trails and things of that nature. So all that stuff bundled up into a really nice Faribault familiarization training as the first module of the day, and then we followed that up with some University of Minnesota curriculum on customer service and how do you treat people, how you do a good job being a representative of your town and of your business, and it was very well received. So that was a nice new thing that we've done. We learned a couple of things, and we'll conduct that training yearly now.
So the number one tip, I would guess, is being attentive, because I've been waited on before in places.
Right,
where they're not even paying any attention to you.
It gets a little tough if you're sitting at a table and somebody walks by you 2 or 3 times and you haven't gotten a menu yet, right? So you're right. Being attentive is very important.
Even at the cash register, they're talking to some other cashier or something, and am I here or?
I think that's one of the most frustrating things for me is when I'm not acknowledged, even if they're busy, maybe with a phone call. Unfortunately, sometimes it appears as though they're chit-chatting with a friend or texting or something, and you're waiting to check out. But the positive things about learning to pay attention is that it makes everybody's day better. It makes people want to come to your business more.
Yep.
And if you're one that works on gratuities, tips, the better attention that you pay, the better people feel, and the more likely are to leave that 20% tip instead of the 10% tip. So it's good for everybody. So much of it seems like it's common courtesy and common sense, but still you have to be mindful to follow through with being a good customer service rep. So those are pieces of the curriculum.
Did you recommend counting the change back to people?
I don't remember that as being part of it. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it's one of my pet peeves when they don't.
You just kind of get it lumped in your hand.
Yeah.
That happens. So, but the idea that we put something together to help people be better ambassadors for Faribault in their everyday work, I was really happy that happened. And that was a recommendation from our tourism commission was, hey, let's do hospitality training. Let's show people how our maps work and what our guide looks like, where they can find more information about Faribault. Go to visitfaribault.com and you'll find all kinds of information, including maps and blogs with stories, and you'll find lodging and dining and trails and other recreation activities, a calendar of events. So just making sure that people understand that tool is readily available and mobile friendly. It shows up real nice on your phone, so it interprets very well to both phones and tablets as well as laptops and desktops. Teaching them those things was a good 2 sessions. I was going to say it's a good session, but it was 2 sessions. So then we'll do that going forward. So.
And the Paradise is becoming a popular spot for these trainings too.
Yeah, they open the doors. It's very comfortable to receive a presentation in those chairs that are designed for people to watch a show.
Right.
So if there's not a lot of desk work, in other words, if you don't have to have something in front of you for taking notes and doing a lot of that, it's a great place to do presentations and have seminars and things of that nature. Very comfortable. It's made for it. The sound is real good in there. And of course, they're very hospitable at the Paradise. They welcome visitors there on a regular basis, so they kind of know how that works.
I know the Minnesota Chamber is doing a tour around the state, and I believe you did attend one of those.
I was just there yesterday, talking about legislative issues and what really more than anything was a lack of action this year. And I'm not going to play politics. There's plenty of opportunities to do better on both sides of the aisle. I will say, though, unfortunately, there was a lot of hard work that went into some very good legislation that was bundled up in an omnibus bill that was eventually not signed. And so a lot of good work, a lot of time and effort went kind of down the drain in that way. And so I think that one piece of legislation that could end up being the most frustrating for every Minnesotan. Now, this is regardless of your affiliations politically. It's regardless if you're a business or an individual, but anybody that's filing taxes in Minnesota, if we don't get it fixed right away in January next year, it's gonna be just a nightmare for folks. It's a little bit disheartening that we couldn't get that important piece. What happened with the changes at the federal level is they required some changes at the state level in order to not have this nightmare to try to file, and it could have been done. In fact, it was packaged up so that it could have been approved twice.
Twice
right.
It was passed, and both times the governor didn't elect.
So that's gonna cost millions and millions of dollars for the citizens as a whole to have your taxes done through some real complicated fashion now in order to try to file and have it be right.
Well, and then the first time he didn't sign it, he said this is why he didn't sign it, and so then they came back and they did what he said he wanted, and he still didn't sign it.
That's pretty unfortunate. It's pretty unfortunate. I have these constant conversations about how can we do better, and I think really at the end of the day it comes down to the idea that we have to be able to find moderate positions on the most important issues, especially those that obviously need to be done. For example, compliance with the federal tax code, that needs to be done. We have to get there. If we don't, again, regardless of your political affiliation, it's going to cause a nightmare for your filings.
Well, the other was the ID. Remember, that took
exactly
forever.
The ID situation, you be in compliance again with federal standards for travel, for airline travel. We should just get there and be done with it, but we hold these things hostage, and it's unfortunate. My hope is that as we move forward, and there's always leadership change in the political ranks, and as we have change in those political ranks after the next election, I hope that the voters find a way to put people who can come to moderate decisions on the most important of issues that really should not be polarized at all from political affiliations, because they're just common sense things that we should be doing for our citizens. So as you're going to the polls, keep that in mind. Now at the chamber, one of the things that we'll be doing excuse me, to help people prepare for the elections is we'll interview candidates. It's the intention this year as we interview them and record that we'll compile the questions and then the videos in such a fashion that you don't necessarily have to listen to a 10-minute interview with one candidate and then a 10-minute interview with the next one and the next one, for example. What you'll be able to do is, by the question, listen to the answers from each of the candidates, back to back to back, all on the same question. And then we'll move to the next question, and all the candidates would answer that one. So in an agile fashion, you'll be able to compare candidates.
So they have them all together? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll interview them individually
and then edit them.
Oh. Right. We want candid feedback. We don't want them to posture themselves based on who else is in the room. We want their real position. Where are you going to be on this issue? So we'll be, now that we have the slate of candidates is down for local elections, school board and city council and county, we'll interview those people and again put that information together so that everybody can make an informed decision when
so
they decide to move forward. So
it'll be this fall, you're thinking, or when do you think?
They'll be out by fall, right? We'll have a committee, probably comprised of members of the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce, who will help us compose questions and decide what issues are most relevant and important. I'm sure that one of the questions is going to be, how do you feel about the pace at which Faribault's moving forward with their Vision 2040? And we can get some feedback on that. Other things that will come up, important issues, we know what they are because they kind of stay the same. How do you feel about our downtown? What things can happen there?
You can read my mind, because that's right. The next thing I was going to ask you about. Where's the parking downtown?
Well, here's where that's at. Tonight at the Paradise from 4:30 to 6, we're taking feedback. As a member of the Main Street Design Committee, which is a part of the Chamber of Commerce, I've been sitting on a parking committee for a year and a half. And what we've been doing for that year and a half with obviously many other members of the committee is we've been slicing and dicing and trying to decide the very best adjustments to policy for parking in the downtown to help make the parking situation better now, but more than that, to make sure that we're prepared as the downtown continues to develop. I'm sure that you've noticed some great additions in the downtown over the last year and a half. We are growing, and we are becoming even more developed than I hoped we would be at this time. With the you go right back. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to point to the Savvy Brush. I'm going to point to Bluebird Cakery. I'm going to point to Fleur de Lis Gallery and Rough Acres Market. Improvements made and upgrades on the fronts of many of our existing businesses. That really cool building facade renovation that happened at Russ and Sue Switchenberg's building there with the studio. All these things are happening right now, and as traffic increases, we just want to make sure that we're able to have the Commerce Corridor, Central Avenue, as available for customers as possible. And so one of the recommendations was that we have that entire Central Avenue at 90-minute zones to help turn over. In the same way that you want to turn over tables in a restaurant during lunch hour, you want to have people in, get them their food in a timely and expedient fashion, and then get the next people seated. We want to be able to do that with our parking spots as well in the main corridor. Now, we make no secret that there's not a perfect parking plan for the downtown because the needs are different. But we're pretty confident that the 90-minute on the Central Avenue corridor, coupled with 3-hour parking on the side streets, so just right around every corner, you would have 3-hour parking, really not much more than a half a block for your furthest walk for up to a 3-hour appointment. And then also in the centers of each block, that's the 15-minute parking, so a couple of spots on each side of the street. And we are proposing that those spots can be converted to pick up and drop off zones during events. So for example, in the middle of the Paradise block, during an event, they would be able to convert to 15-minute parking spots with a couple of cones and a permit that they would be able to make that pick up and drop off zone. So that if you do have somebody who's mildly disabled, or if elderly, for example, you can get them dropped off and they've got a nice path up to the sidewalk to get to where they're going. And again, nothing's perfect, but we do think that this is a pretty good solution, that meaningful 15-minute parking during the day for those that are just grabbing a coffee or dropping off their dry cleaning, and then in the evenings that can be drop-off zones so that people who are parking further out for events are able to get their passengers in and out of the venues.
And then the people living downtown are going to need to get a permit. Is that still on the docket?
What's on the docket is if your apartments don't have assigned and marked off-street parking behind the buildings or in garages, whatever that might be, if you don't have that assigned, we would be requiring a permit. And there's some pretty big advantages to that, both for the tenant and for the downtown merchants. So I'll start with the merchants. So they would be off-street parking. They would go to the 18-hour lots. The tenants would. Now, so that's an advantage in that we have. If we're looking for parking for customers, then we want to have staff and tenants parking off-street, so that we have as much parking available for customers. Now, the advantage for the tenants with that is that permit. Excuse me, just a sec. Sorry about that. The tenants have a free pass for parking in that spot for more than 18 hours. So if they're home for the weekend or they're going on vacation, they no longer have to worry about trying to move their car in the 3-hour zone or even in the 18-hour lots. They will be allowed to park in the 18-hour lots for a longer period of time. If they're gone for a week, they're going to be okay. So that's what the permit's about. And we've come up with what we think is a reasonable fee. It's way below what you would pay if you were buying parking. It's $20 a month. So is the cost of those permits.
I have just 1 minute left. You had your business.
Oh, wow.
Your I forget what you called it.
The mayor's business after hours.
No. The business.
Business challenge.
Just business challenge. That's
okay,
it. How many businesses did you get to apply?
We have 5. We have 5 solid, fun business
I know
ideas.
You can't tell me specifics, but can you give me a hint of what these businesses are about?
I can tell you that there's some businesses that cater to retail, there's service, and there's a food-related business as well.
Okay.
So we've got a nice mix. It'll be fun.
And this is all downtown?
It needs to be in the historic district is where they'd have to set up shop to qualify.
All right. And when will we get into some specifics on this, you think?
As the contestants allow us to share information about their businesses and plans, that's when we can move forward with any of that. But we treat those business plans and the contestants confidentially.